Hundreds of Sydney demonstrators give a noisy welcome to a visiting Soviet minister. And a burns victim doctors thought would die prepares to leave hospital. Good evening, those stories shortly, but first the Chia project. The Singapore-based developer flew out of Melbourne today, leaving behind a political storm and his half-completed dream in South Yarra.
The first hint of trouble at the South Yarra project came late yesterday when Chia asked the Melbourne Stock Exchange to suspend trading in the shares of his Australian company. The Singapore millionaire spent all morning in his office complex at number 1 Collins Street. But this afternoon, Chia dashed to Melbourne Airport to fly out of the country.
Excuse me, Mr. Chia, could you tell us...
He caught the 3 o'clock flight to Singapore, leaving the troubled South Yarra project behind him. An hour later, the stock exchange was told that Chia had sold out.
4:03 p.m. Chia Australia Limited, South Yarra project.
The Chia Group says the project has suffered from escalating costs, which have affected the construction industry in Melbourne, and more money is needed to complete stage 1. Accordingly, the directors of the Chia Group have concluded that the sale of the investment is in the best interests of the shareholders. Finance company AGC will purchase the Chia Group's interest and will continue the project.
The South Yarra project problems brought no cheer for the government in Parliament. The opposition planned a barrage of questions seeking to embarrass the government for trying to distance itself from the billion-dollar problem. Liberal leader Jeff Kennett called for a public inquiry as a warning to would-be developers of the pitfalls they faced, while the government attacked the opposition for trying to grind Chia into the dirt.
Mr. Speaker, it is extraordinary the lengths to which this opposition will go, extraordinary the lengths the opposition will go to put down development works in this state.
Later, the opposition partly blamed the government for Chia's problems, saying the government had bulldozed the project through prematurely.
Local government is also upset about the fiasco. Paran Mayor, Councillor Neil Barker, has accused the government of running roughshod over his council's objections.
The reaction from Paran City Council was swift and sharp. Mayor, Councillor Neil Barker, says he and other councillors had their reservations about the Chia project from day one. But he claims their objections were brushed aside by a government determined to prove it could attract developers to Victoria.
And in this case, the government effectively rode roughshod over the council and the Paran community.
This particular decision was one that the council did not agree with, but it having been taken, the council took it on board and certainly made best go of it.
But really you had no alternative?
Once the decision was taken, no.
Several hundred noisy demonstrators have welcomed Soviet Foreign Minister Eduard Shevardnadze to Sydney. Uniformed police and the Tactical Response Group held back the chanting crowd of Jewish, Afghan and Vietnamese protesters as the minister attended a state dinner.
Arriving at the Russian consulate in Wallara, Soviet Foreign Minister Shevardnadze was warmly greeted by his fellow countrymen. There was no sign of any demonstrators. Most have been led to believe the Soviet Foreign Minister would arrive at the Regent Hotel where the Russian delegation is staying. But the wrath of Sydney's Afghan, Lithuanian and Jewish communities was reserved for his appearance at the state dinner at the State Office Block. Officials feared a major confrontation when demonstrators, mistaking some Soviet officials for the Foreign Minister, let fly with a barrage of eggs. However, when Mr. Shevardnadze arrived, there were only loud protests and no need for the protective umbrellas thrown around the Soviet Politburo member. No such protests are expected tomorrow for the planned harbour cruise for Mrs. Shevardnadze, while her husband meets federal opposition leader John Howard prior to leaving the country. Bill Payne, Eyewitness News.
A police search is continuing tonight following the abduction of a woman in Collingwood this afternoon. A witness told police the woman was assaulted as she was dragged into a car and driven away. The vehicle, a white 1976 BMW sedan, has since been sighted in Clifton Hill. The car's number plate is BRW 300 and police have warned the public not to approach it. Anyone sighting the BMW is asked to contact D24 on 11444. It's been called a miraculous recovery. Norman Yates received burns to 80% of his body in the Sims metal explosion last year, but 5 months later his burns have healed and he's about to leave hospital.
This was the scene on the 30th of September last year when a rotary furnace exploded in Brooklyn. The blast, likened to an atomic bomb blast, tore the Sims metal factory apart. 4 men died. Others have been treated for burns over the last 5 months, many teetering on the edge of life and death. Norman Yates was only metres from the furnace when it exploded. Since then, his life at times has been a living hell.
There's times I felt like giving up, but the staff got me back on the track.
What made you keep going throughout these 5 months?
My kids. My wife.
Doctors say Norman's body was critically burned, and only the skin protected by his boots and a wrist bandage weren't burned. They say they didn't expect him to survive.
After the break, the Chamberlain inquiry about to come to a close, and we pay tribute to entertainer Danny Kaye.
Lorne, vacation mecca of Victoria, and at its heart, the Chamberlain, a holiday resort of truly international distinction. Australia's fastest-selling resort invites you to discover why this outstanding development has already attracted world acclaim. The Chamberlain is your family's opportunity to secure forever luxurious, rent-free holidays. For details, complete and post our coupon in tomorrow's Age or Sun.
Every day is gonna be your day. You know the feeling and you know the way. Your style brings out the best. You know what it takes to live life refreshing. Coke is me and Coke is you. Coke belongs to you in everything you do. You know you're going one better. We've got a taste for you. Coca-Cola.
Australian politicians attack and counter-attack each other relentlessly. Needless to say, each round has a lasting and often dramatic effect on our lives. It is also true to say that only one newspaper reports unerringly on the crucial issues affecting our future. And only one newspaper goes so swiftly to the heart of the matter. The Australian. If you're not reading it, you're wasting your time.
Picture yourself on a Sun Lover holiday. Book through the Queensland Government Travel Centre or your travel agent.
After almost 12 months of evidence, the Chamberlain Royal Commission is drawing to a close. Final submissions from legal counsel begin tomorrow in Darwin.
Michael and Lindy Chamberlain have arrived in the Northern Territory for yet another court appearance, but this time there's a difference. They've confided in friends they believe this will be the last time they come here as convicted criminals. Both are convinced this Royal Commission will absolve them of any involvement in the disappearance of their daughter Azaria at Ayers Rock almost 7 years ago. Their counsel, Mr John Winicky QC, will present a detailed summary of the new evidence which strongly refutes the original damning evidence of fetal blood in the car and scissor cuts in Azaria's jumpsuit. However, Mr Winicky can expect spirited opposition from Northern Territory counsel Ian Barker QC, the trial prosecutor, who has produced a succession of new scientific witnesses to support the original Crown case.
The United Nations paid a rare tribute today to one of America's best-known entertainers. The World Organisation honoured comedian Danny Kaye, who died at the age of 74 from hepatitis, reportedly contracted from a blood transfusion 4 years ago.
You have a singing busboy David Daniel Kaminsky became Danny Kaye, an idol to a generation of comedians who followed.
We all felt we knew him. He was like part of our lives, especially in show business. He was the person we most wanted to be when we grew up.
Kaye made 17 movies, mostly musical comedies like Hans Christian Andersen, White Christmas, and The Court Jester.
What else could he be but a jester?
Perhaps his best-known role was that of James Thurber's character in The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. But Kaye was not content just to have fantasies, he lived them out. The comic became a jet pilot, a symphony conductor, and a world-renowned chef. Danny Kaye's greatest role was not on film, but as ambassador-at-large for the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, UNICEF, a charity he served for 30 years.
Good cheer for beer drinkers tonight. Melbourne's 3-week-old beer strike is over. First supplies began flowing from Carlton and United Breweries this afternoon after drivers voted to return to work. Joggers at Albert Park could have been forgiven for thinking all was not as it should be tonight. They ran to the beat of native drums as a touch of Polynesia came to Melbourne.
It was heady and inviting stuff for those 200 guests who enjoyed the show under the white silk-lined tent. Some of Melbourne's best-known travel writers and socialites were rowed across to Gun Island in Albert Park Lake and served a sumptuous buffet and entertained by a delightful French Polynesian folkloric group who are visiting Melbourne as part of the Moomba celebrations. Club Mediterranee, who now have 108 establishments around the world, have just spent $24 million refurbishing the Tahiti branch, and they are looking for more Australian tourists. Club Med are planning an Australian branch in the Worldwide Link, and tonight they were out to show us some of the musical and culinary delights waiting for us at this island paradise, which was the site of the first Club Med back in 1958. The sun sinking over Gun Island at Albert Park Lake is not quite how Tahiti looks, but for those of us who can't afford it, it's been a very good attempt to capture some of the atmosphere and whet our appetites for that tropical paradise. This is Roland Roccacelli at Gun Island for Eyewitness News.
Melbourne can look forward to a fine, warm and sunny day tomorrow with afternoon sea breezes and a top of 30 degrees. The outlook showers developing for Friday and Saturday, becoming fine again on Sunday. And that's all for Eyewitness News tonight. We'll leave you with a preview of what you can expect at the Melbourne Motor Show, which starts at the Exhibition Building tomorrow. Good night.